Welcome. We have an incredible guest who is dedicated to transforming people's health. Meet Christine Kjeldbjerg, a highly qualified nutritional therapist and functional medicine trained practitioner, personal trainer specializing in Barre, Pilates, and sports nutrition. She's on a mission to educate, inspire, and motivate her clients towards optimal health and well-being. Now, please welcome Christine.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Christine, could you kindly walk us through your journey from being diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome to successfully becoming pregnant twice using diet and alternative therapies?
I was first diagnosed when I was living in Denmark. So at that stage, I was around 27 years of age. And I had been to a gynecologist because I had difficulties conceiving. So I was married at that stage and wanted to try and have a baby. So I put this down initially to having been on the pill for many years, which, knowing what I do now, I wish I hadn't been told by my doctor to start the pill, but I had. And that was because of poor skin, very poor skin. So obviously already at a young age, I was producing way too much sebum. I didn't have other typical signs of polycystic ovary syndrome, which can be extra weight and hair growth and things like that. But the gynecologist did a scan and did see that I had cysts within my ovaries and, cystical eggs. So she actually gave me the confirmation that polycystic ovaries, and that's sort of also confirmed the reason why my periods had been a little bit irregular. So they weren't actually following a predictive cycle. I worked basically using my personal training experience, because I had nutrition as part of that training, to work on my diet, and also used another form of holistic treatment called reflexology to help balance my hormones, and also stepped back on doing so much exercise because, as you and I know, there is actually so many factors that can be creating inflammatory processes within the body. So I was at that stage overtraining. So I had to knock back on my training, still eat what I was eating, which was fairly balanced anyway, maybe focusing a little bit more on getting some more starches in rather than being too heavy on the protein, and using reflexology. Actually, within 5 months, I fell pregnant. It was an interesting journey because I had the same, I've got 2 girls now, and they're now adults, but I have 2 girls. And as soon as we'd had the first one, she was such an easy baby, I thought, let's try for number 2. And again, things didn't fall into place as quickly as I thought they would. So I went back to the reflexologist and had more treatment of reflexology. So I would say that had a big part to play in helping balance my hormones, but possibly also that time given to bring down the nervous system and shift into more the parasympathetic nervous system, because I'm a doer. I like to be busy. So that in that time I was sat on my bum doing nothing. So I think that had a big part to play as well.
And what prompted you to try reflexology rather than any other alternative medicine?
At that time, because we are talking 23 years ago now, it was what was available to me in my near surroundings, and the reflexologist came highly recommended, having been a nurse previously and then trained, so she knew all about the body. So I felt very comfortable working with her. So I think that was also one of the main factors.
When did you first learn about your Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and how did you navigate rebalancing your body post-diagnosis?
The symptoms that come with Hashimoto's I've been experienced whilst I was studying for my bachelor in nutritional therapy. I moved from Denmark to France in 2006. I started studying probably 3 years later in nutritional therapy, full-time, while still teaching my exercise classes and being a mum to 2 young girls at that stage, and obviously wife. So I was trying to juggle a lot of things. And I had this extreme fatigue that I hadn't previously experienced. And I just thought, I'm just doing too much. And then my hair started falling out quite a lot, and I was always cold. But because I'd had Raynaud's before, which I'd inherited from my mother's side, I didn't necessarily relate the cold to Hashimoto's. And also in the south of France, it's quite temperate. It's not always that cold, but I was still feeling cold. I had quite a bit of brain fog, which I'd never experienced before. I've always thought I've actually got quite a good brain that retains a lot of information quite well, but that disappeared. and my throat was sore. I've just felt that there was this pressure around my throat. Because I was studying nutritional therapy, I kind of picked up on a lot, okay, there's definitely an imbalance going on. It probably is related to this, that, and the other. And I went to the doctor and said, I think I have Hashimoto's, and kind of looked at me and said, no. And I said, well, would you please just measure my thyroid hormones, but also include the antibodies? And it came back positive. So I also asked her to measure the iodine and selenium and a few other things, vitamin D, and they were all low. Everything was low. So I added more seaweed to my diet and tried to do things naturally. I needed some high dose vitamin D because it was that low. And again, this is living in the south of France where my exposure to the sunlight was good. But I've since gone into nutrigenomics, which we can talk about later, and have seen that I do have a single nucleotide polymorphism, or a SNP. That means my vitamin D absorption is downregulated. So I do need more vitamin D than the average person. So obviously I had to work on balancing those. I changed my toothpaste out. So I was using a normal toothpaste at that stage, and I switched to non-fluoride version by Weleda, which I still use to date. I took out the gluten, which isn't so easy when you live in a place that does lovely croissants. So that was my go-to treat. So I've had to find other treats to enjoy. And I also worked on my gut health. I have since found out that, probably due to a lot of stresses and training, that my mucosal barrier, so the lining in the gut, was extremely thin. So my levels of secretory IgA were very, very low. So I've been working on that ever since.
Your career boasts an impressive breadth of services spanning over 25 years, from fitness, offerings like Pilates, core, extend bar training, and hypervibe, to nutritional therapy, nutrigenomics, interviews, and creating recipes. How do you manage to maintain such a diverse and balanced set of services?
Yeah, it all keeps me on my toes. But as I said before, I really do enjoy being busy. Some people don't, but I do. I get bored very, very quickly. I was born with ants in my pants, and I still am the same way. Don't get me wrong, I can also sit down and do not disturb, but that's often to get involved in creating new material. So yeah, I'm always, I think, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I'm very passionate about what I do. So movement has always been a part of my life. Also, nutrition has always been part of my life, because on my mother's side, I was born into a family of chefs. So that, I think, has always been inspirational behind, even though I've never gone that way, I suppose with the nutrition, I've always had maybe the feel for combining certain things together, or just playing with food, I think is the word, because I like to play with food. And that can also be my therapy. So my therapy for me, where I switch off, can be time to mess around in the kitchen or mess around in my garden. For me, that is bliss. But I'm busy doing something else, but I manage to switch off. And I think that's what keeps me balanced as well. It can be challenging at times because, as you know, we need to do CPD, so clinical professional development, every single year, both with nutrition, but also with the training. So I am also in the background doing quite a lot of courses and keeping myself up to date. So yeah, one is my passion that keeps me going with it all, because I just love what I do. And the other thing I think is that for me, my own therapy is in the kitchen or the garden, which is also related to it all.
Yeah, so the switch from fitness to nutritional therapy and functional medicine completely makes sense. Could you shed some light on, the nutrigenomics and what you've just mentioned before, and how having this qualification does enhance your ability to support clients?
I really feel that when we're coming to look at personalized nutrition, we need to understand quite a lot about the person in front of us. And sometimes, we can do tests that are a snapshot in time. So, and they can be really, really useful. Don't get me wrong, the saliva, the blood test, what stool test can be great. But with the nutrigenomics, we are getting a map of certain pathways within a client that are what they are born with. And we can work with that. So we can assist a client on their road to health by the SNPs that I mentioned before. When they have any single nucleotide polymorphisms, we can adjust their diet or any supplementation they be having to support where those imbalances may be, weaknesses, so to speak. And then obviously a lot of these SNPs can be regulated by nutrition and diet, but also environmental factors. So some of these weaknesses aren't necessarily weak. It's only if the environment isn't favorable for that person. So there's a lot of elements in play, but I really, really feel that it is the way forward in personalizing someone's protocol. So that's why I like it so much. And I think there's going to be a lot more developments in that area in the coming years.
I've also trained with GlycoGX, and I also found that that's a missing piece that explains why some protocol work up to a point for certain people and not some others. When you try to figure out why for this person, what usually works isn't working. So yeah, I absolutely love this.
Yeah, and for me, for example, the thyroid pathway clearly showed to me that I had a problem with my vitamin D, I had a problem with vitamin A, and I had a problem with iodine in actually absorbing them. So for myself also, my needs were higher than maybe the doctor would have said to me, oh, you need this amount, just take this amount. I was like, actually, no, I'm going to double it up. Because I know that I've got a big time weakness going on there. So, and everything else in my life was pretty balanced. So I had to support that.
What are some common misconceptions about nutrition and fitness that you frequently come across in your practice?
One, the biggest one, I think probably is that we can't exercise our way to a healthy body. And I have seen that because I also work with sports people who are working very, very hard, but not necessarily at the top of their game because their nutrition isn't quite right. And also I have on the other end of the scale, people that are working really, really hard, doing loads of training, but they're not focusing on their nutrition. So the goals that they want to achieve with losing a few kilos or whatever, they're not getting there because they're just not balancing out their nutrition in the right way. So I think there is definitely power at the end of our fork. What we choose to feed ourselves with can make a very, very big difference to optimal health. So there's that. And another big one for me that I unfortunately have experienced over the last 10 years is ignorance around toxins. So our toxic exposure. I know that we can't see most of them, but they're there in our environment and we are consuming them on a daily basis. And this level of toxin seems to be going up and up and up and causing detrimental effects upon health. And I have been running a Cleanse and Reboot program twice a year for the last 10 years, so since I got my bachelor. Everyone is very, very focused on the nutrition part, taking out inflammatory foods, but the switch to removing toxins from cosmetics, hygiene products and things like that, which is within their control, even cookware and stuff like that, they are much more reluctant to do, as though it doesn't matter. But, we know that we can get many toxic elements just out of, one of those non-stick frying pans, for example, the microplastics that come up. So I think for me, that ignorance, we continually need to be sort of pushing that conversation with people to make sure that they try and make changes within their own personal environment to remove the toxins where possible and reduce the burden, because we all have this toxic bucket, so to speak. I call it, it's the same as a histamine bucket. So we fill this bucket up and at some point it's just going to tip over if it's too full. And that's where disease and poor health comes into play. So it's always trying to keep that bucket as, not as full as it should be. So that's also one of the big misconceptions that I see. I think those two are the most important too.
And in your view, what are the key elements for maintaining a well-rounded and balanced lifestyle?
This one I ignored for a long time, and that was sleep. So I was one of those people that could get by on very little sleep, but that all changed when I hit perimenopause and Hashimoto's. at the same time, actually. So again, I was at the early stages of my perimenopause when my Hashimoto's started. So there can be obviously that hormone, that change of high and low estrogens in the body that could also be a trigger for the Hashimoto's, but obviously that's another conversation. So sleep is a big one, and switching off devices before bed, so important for a balanced lifestyle. Exercise without it being overtraining or undertraining, and preferably outside in nature. And if possible, with the phone switched off. So you're actually listening to the birds sing and you're noticing the environment around you and that kind of stuff. I think that's very important. I also think that many people are not observant about the protein content in their daily food plan. It's very, very easy to grab something easy that may be in a packet and maybe not containing as many nutrients as we want. I mean, some of the proteins are also in a packet, but we tend to be under eating the proteins and overeating sugars and starches. Also getting enough vegetables in. So a variety of plant foods. I'm a huge fan of Deanna Minnick, Dr. Deanna Minnick, and she has a load of wonderful, interesting advice up on her website. And she's always been a great inspiration to me. But I've always loved vegetables. I am pulled toward vegetables and colour and plants. And I don't know, again, working in the garden, that's always been me. So it comes easy to me, but not so easy to some of my clients, which I have to work with them on. And I think a really, really important one for a healthy lifestyle is making sure that those around you are really supportive. So you're not having negative energy. Negative energy can be so depleting and so demotivating. I think that's a big one. And so if we want to end it all, laugh as much as you can. So even if you have to put Mr. Bean on or something, laughter, best medicine of all. Goes with sleep, actually, laughter and sleep.
And for someone who's just starting their journey towards better health and wellness, you've just given us some really good, example of what to do. Would you advise them the same thing, or would you give them some different advice?
Yeah, no, most definitely. They are, for me, my pillar stones. I'd probably start with the sleep and the hydration, and then, depending on the person, see where we would be tweaking other areas. And depending on the person, it could be one thing at a time, or someone might be able to change 3 or 4 things quite simply. So it all depends on that person's starting point.
And how do you approach goal setting with your clients? And, you ensure they stay motivated throughout their journey, because compliance, as we know, is the most difficult part of being a nutritional therapist and a practitioner in general.
I really listen to what my clients are saying, and I have had many that are, maybe addicted to certain things, but it's basically a pattern that they've got into. So it's how do we break that routine? And I did do neuro-linguistic programming as part of my training. It's not, sometimes with a person, it's not taking out something completely. It's cutting back a little bit, and I work with my clients on what steps can we do to cut back, and what might we put in to replace something, because that's always important. It's not just that, we don't just want to take away, we want to give as well. So what are you giving back to the client? That really helps my clients in moving forward and getting results. And I always get them to feel that it doesn't, have to be straight away. It could take weeks for a small change to happen. It doesn't matter, because the thing that they are doing that might be negative to their health has also been building up over time. So you can't just pull the rug from under their carpet and expect them to still be standing. So slowly. And I am always there. I mean, my husband gets very annoyed with me that he thinks I'm too available to my clients, but I guess it's because I'm passionate about what I do. And if I am getting several messages between consultations, yes, I'll reply and I'll support my clients, because I know what they are doing is going to be a major step in their health journey to improve their health. So you have to be there.
What do you hope clients take away from their experience working with you, apart from support, both in terms of tangible results and mindset shifts? Because you're quite an inspiration, let's be honest.
I hope that they feel inspired, and I hope that they feel that everything is possible. And again, that small steps over a period of time can reap big rewards. So I try and explain that from the start. I think it's very important to do that goal setting at the very beginning, set up expectations that they don't expect that, a week or a month later, everything's fine, because their journey could be a year, 18 months, 2 months. And as you and I know, with autoimmune conditions as well, it can take a very long time to try and find a semblance of rebalance in the body. So again, it depends on the starting point. Some find it harder to change habits of a lifetime than others. But I do find that those that do make changes have this enormous sense of pride. And that's really, really lovely. And I try and get them to involve their friends and family as much as they can too. And I think that helps them, once they've actually expressed what they want to achieve to the people in their closest environment and get the support from them. I think that is a big, big step as well in their journey.
Balancing your own lifestyle, fitness routine, and nutritional practices amidst a demanding professional schedule must be challenging. How do you manage this balance?
Well, as I said to you, I don't know about balance, but I'm passionate about it. I do need to take time out for myself, and occasionally I will block out a long weekend where I'll be away with my husband. In that time, I try and switch off and play complete tourist wherever I am. And that's really nice. But I also want to keep on learning. I suppose, I'm older than a lot of other nutritional therapists. I know I've been in this business and I've been teaching. I actually started teaching when I was 18 because I was teaching what was then aerobics or exercise to music. So a long time ago. But I feel that I need to stay on my toes and in the game while I can, because my length of time is shorter than some of the people who are younger and starting in this environment. Yeah, balancing goes back to me being in the kitchen and in the garden, I guess. My therapy spots.
And for those who would be eager to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out?
I often get messages sent to me on Instagram or Facebook on a messenger. And from there, I think that's probably the simplest way. And if people are then wanting to organize either a consultation or follow one of my programs, I send them my email or my mobile and then connect that way. So I think that's probably the easiest, just to DM me. I always see my messages pop up. So I respond when I'm not in consultation or teaching classes. www.ck-health.com. So the CK is for the initials of my name. So, and my online programs and everything else are on there. And Instagram is where my recipes are. I put up monthly.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine, for this inspiring chat. Thank you to our listeners. If you've enjoyed this interview, perhaps you'll enjoy this one or that one. And if you find it useful, please like this video and leave a comment with your questions and thoughts. Have you also considered to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest interview? Until next time, eat well. Bye.